Elvis Presley's story, rise to fame and the price of success. In a narrow kitchen lit by a humming fridge, a young listener presses play. A grainy guitar riff spills into the room, and a voice with velvet grit cuts through the morning quiet. The name is Elvis Presley. For a few heartbeats, bills on the table and messages on the phone fade to the background. The music does what music often does. It lifts you a few inches off the floor of ordinary life and lets you look down at it from the air. He did not begin as a legend. He was a shy kid from Tupelo, Mississippi, moving often, wearing second-hand jackets, dreaming bigger than the street outside his door. He soaked up sounds from blues bars, country stations, and street corner harmonies, then spun them together with a rhythm all his own. When he stepped to a microphone, the room changed temperature. Cameras leaned in, people argued, lines formed around the block. This is where the phrase rise to fame gets its electricity. Fame was not a staircase. It was an elevator that shot upward so fast your ears popped. The hair, the swivel, the voice that could whisper or thunder. Suddenly, a teenager from a small town became the king of rock and roll, and the nation learned his first name by heart. Yet bright lights cast deep shadows. Attention can feel like air until it feels like a storm. That is the story we will walk through today, not only how the crown was made, but what it cost to wear it. Welcome to Learn English Listening. I'm Lydia, your guide for this journey, part English practice, part motivation, part true story of an American icon. We will listen closely, learn useful words, and draw strength for our own lives. As you listen, notice the images, rhythms, and feelings. Let the story teach not only language, but courage for the week ahead. To begin, I'd love to hear from you. Which city are you joining us from, and what hour is it there? The glow of fame often hides the shadows behind it. For Elvis Presley, success arrived like a tidal wave, fast and overwhelming. One moment he was driving a truck in Memphis. The next he was touring the country with crowds so loud he could barely hear his own voice. Contracts, managers, reporters, all demanded more. When the curtain closed after a performance, silence wrapped around him, and that silence was sometimes heavier than the noise. In his 20s, the spotlight felt thrilling. But as the years pressed on, expectations became chains. Every song had to top the last. Every movie had to sell more tickets. Every move on stage had to be sharper than before. The world did not simply want Elvis. They wanted a bigger, brighter version each time. That pressure is what people mean when they talk about the price of success. It looks like applause, but underneath it often feels like exhaustion. Think about your own life. Maybe you are not chased by photographers, but perhaps you are chased by deadlines, bills, or the weight of comparison with others your age. Between 25 and 40, many people carry invisible burdens, trying to climb at work, raise children, or prove that their dreams matter. Elvis's story may be larger than life, but the feelings inside it are ones we all understand. Have you ever carried a burden no one else could see? That question lingers not just for celebrities, but for anyone who has smiled on the outside while struggling on the inside. In these struggles, reflection becomes vital. Elvis turned to music, sometimes to escape, sometimes to heal. For us, reflection can be a pause, a walk, or even the act of writing down what feels too heavy to hold in silence. When the world called him the king of rock and roll, many believed Elvis Presley was born with something untouchable. But if you look closely, the truth is not magic. It is mindset. Elvis did not invent the guitar or the blues or gospel music. What he did was combine them in a way no one had dared before. He allowed himself to be different, and that difference became his crown. The hidden key in his story is not only talent, but courage. Courage to sing in a voice critics said was too wild. Courage to dance in a way some called scandalous. Courage to keep walking into rooms where doors had once been closed. He did not wait for the world's approval. He built his sound until the world had to listen. For anyone chasing growth, there are lessons in the simple English phrases that shaped this kind of resilience. The first phrase is, "I can handle it." Elvis faced crowds, cameras, and critics, yet he kept stepping on stage. Saying, "I can handle it," is a reminder that strength grows only when tested. The second phrase is, "one step at a time." Fame came quickly, but the journey to find his style was slow. For us, progress may not be loud or fast, but one step is always better than none. The third phrase is, "I'm still learning." Even at the height of his career, Elvis experimented with new songs and styles. To admit "I'm still learning" keeps us humble and open to change, no matter how far we've come. When you practice these phrases, you are not only improving English, you are adopting the very mindset that kept Elvis moving forward. His hidden key was not just music. It was the choice, again and again, to learn, adapt, and believe that the next stage was worth stepping onto. Beyond his courage, Elvis also carried a quiet discipline. He spent hours repeating songs until every note felt like breath itself. That persistence shows us another lesson. Mastery is not built in a single night of applause, but in countless unseen hours. When you repeat a phrase in English, you are building the same hidden strength, quiet practice that prepares you for a louder stage tomorrow. Picture Elvis Presley on stage in Las Vegas. The lights blaze, sequins on his white jumpsuit shimmer, and thousands of fans scream so loudly the sound becomes a single wall of noise. From the outside, it looks like the height of glory. Yet inside, he often felt the quiet sting of loneliness. Fame gave him everything, and at the same time took pieces away. This is where his story turns dramatic. The very energy that built his career also drained him. Endless performances, constant travel, and pressure to remain the king left little room for rest. His voice soared, but his spirit often ached. He wanted to be seen not just as an icon, but as a human being, someone who laughed, hurt, and longed for peace. That struggle between the public crown and the private self is what makes his story both powerful and tragic. For those listening now, maybe you know this feeling in your own way. Perhaps you keep up appearances at work, smiling in meetings while doubts gnaw quietly inside. Maybe you carry family expectations that leave little room for your own dreams. Elvis's stage was global, but your stage might be the office, the classroom, or even your own home. The emotions are not so different. Change begins with small steps, and that brings us to another reflection. What small habit are you trying to improve this month? For Elvis, it might have been finding moments of calm between shows. For you, it might be choosing a healthier routine, taking a quiet walk, or practicing English with steady discipline. The emotional climax of Elvis's life shows us that success without balance can wound deeply. But it also teaches us that even when the spotlight feels too bright, small acts of change can steady our hearts. Behind the curtain, he sometimes sat in silence, longing for the simple freedom of walking down a street without being followed. That craving for normal life makes his story even more human. For all his glory, Elvis wanted what we all want: to be understood, to rest, to love, without condition. His struggles remind us that success cannot erase the universal need for peace of heart. Imagine life as a garden. Some flowers bloom quickly, catching every eye, while others take longer, growing roots deep before anyone notices. Elvis Presley's life was like a garden planted in bright sunlight and sudden storms. The beauty of his voice and charisma brought joy to millions, yet the storms of pressure and expectation sometimes bent his branches. But here is the reframe. Storms are not only destructive, they also water the soil. In our own lives, struggles can feel like harsh winds, but they often leave behind hidden strength. A difficult week at work, a broken relationship, or the weight of responsibility can shake us. Yet when the storm passes, we may find we are standing stronger, our roots holding more firmly than before. For Elvis, music was more than entertainment. It was a form of healing, a way to pour out what he could not say in words. For us, healing might be different. It might be journaling late at night, sharing with a trusted friend, or simply pausing to breathe. What matters is the act of reframing, seeing not only what was lost, but also what can grow in its place. In your own garden, what storms have you survived? And what new growth is waiting quietly beneath the soil? Elvis's legacy reminds us that even a life marked by struggle can also be remembered for beauty. The song does not vanish when the singer leaves the stage. It echoes on in those who heard it. From a small town in Mississippi to stages across the world, Elvis Presley's story is both a celebration and a caution. He proved that an ordinary boy could rise to the very top, that music could break barriers and bring people together. Yet his journey also showed how heavy the crown of fame can be, how the applause of millions does not always quiet the ache inside. When we step back, the lesson becomes clear. Success, in any form, demands a price. The question is whether we will let that price consume us or teach us. Elvis's life reminds us that even when we achieve what we once dreamed of, we must keep asking, am I growing or am I only performing? At this moment, you stand between comfort and growth. Which path will you take? The path of comfort is safe, familiar, and easy to explain. The path of growth is uncertain, often uncomfortable, but full of possibility. Elvis's story whispers that greatness is not in perfection, but in the courage to keep choosing growth, even when the spotlight feels too bright. If this video gave you something meaningful, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. And subscribe to keep walking with us on this journey of English and self-growth. Every story you hear is a step toward both better language and a stronger spirit. So as the record spins to its last note, remember, the music may end, but the lesson plays on in you.